New tonight on Our News Live at 7, the real reason behind the teacher shortage. Bahamas Union of Teachers President Belinda Wilson speaks up. But first,
the Bahamas Public Services Union hinting that there could be some disruption in services as the union fights to finalize its industrial agreement. I'm Berthany McDermott, and I'll have the details for you tonight in Our News.
And what does it take to execute the most anticipated Junkanoo parade? Our Chief Alive Officer has the answer. And then in Our News at 7:30, the public hospital is facing severe overcrowding issues. We'll tell you what they're doing about it tonight on Our News. Our News Live at 7 starts now. Welcome to Our News Live at 7. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Junkanoo Knowles. The Public Hospitals Authority, the Airport Authority, the Social Services Ministry, among a few government agencies that could see a disruption in service in the coming days as the Bahamas Public Services Union is hinting at industrial action. Berthany McDermott joins us now from the BPSU's East Street headquarters with more on this. Berthany?
That's right, Junkanoo. I'm standing outside the Bahamas Public Services Union's East Street headquarters, where union heads are expected to meet with its membership to chart the way forward amid what Union President Kingsley Ferguson is calling stalled negotiations. We spoke to Ferguson this morning. He said the union is ready to sign off on a final industrial agreement for its members, but he says he's not getting a response from government. Here's what he had to say.
It is likely that some industrial action can be foreshadowed.
The BPSU threatening to disrupt services at the various entities that employs its members. The union claims the government is stalling on negotiations. According to Union President Kingsley Ferguson, the union reached out to the various government agencies to decide on a date to sign the industrial agreement, including Public Service Minister Fred Mitchell.
And it indicates trust dismissive finds you well, the Bahamas Public Service Union right to request a final draft proposal of the government of the Bahamas for consideration. The Bahamas Public Services Union is available for signing any day from the 5th through the 9th of December.
But according to Ferguson, the union hasn't gotten a response. The Ministry of the Public Service released a press statement on November 10th saying a proposal was sent to the BPSU, but that the union did not respond. It added the lack of communication has caused a delay in the projected rollout of salary increases.
There has been a lot of talk about the union stalling, and now the union is sitting or being held in abeyance to some extent.
We asked Ferguson if the union is pleased with what the government is proposing. To that, he says it's a step in the right direction.
We were pleased at that point that the government moved from where they were in relation to their offer closer to what we were agitating for.
Since taking office, the Davis administration has signed countless industrial agreements with trade unions. We asked the BPSU president if he feels his union is being targeted.
Bahamas Air's negotiations were going on, and so Bahamas Air decided that they were going to sit out, hence diverting the attention from the BPSU to Bahamas Air. And so it appears as if in an effort to secure what it is you want, you must take industrial action.
Junkanoo, this meeting was scheduled to start at 6:30, but it hasn't started yet. We spoke to President Ferguson just moments ago. He says he's giving his members time to arrive. But we'll be standing here when that meeting starts and when it ends to bring you the latest from what happens on the inside. I'll be back at 7:30 with an update to see whatever happens by that time. But for now, reporting live from BPSU's East Street headquarters, I'm Berthany McDermott. Junkanoo.
All right, thanks a lot, Berthany, and we'll check back in with you in Our News at 7:30. Meanwhile, the Teachers Union president is raising concerns about the teacher shortages that exist. President of the Bahamas Union of Teachers, Belinda Wilson, mincing no words today, addressing the ongoing problem. Recently, Education Minister Glenys Hanna Martin blamed the problem on teachers who are unwilling to relocate to the Family Islands, but Wilson disagrees.
Teachers have requested to be reassigned to the Family Islands, and they've been turned down by the Department of Education. Furthermore, why would you want to go to the Family Island when, as I speak with you today, there are teachers who've been in the Family Island since August and they've not received $1 rent? So the landlord is sending voice notes to them saying, we need our money or you have to move.
Now, Wilson, she had much more to say on that issue. We've got a full report on that. It's coming up in our news at 7:30. And we've got more tonight on the arrest of that officer who was taken into custody while on duty at the Magistrates Court complex yesterday. Today, the police corporal remains in custody on allegations that he played a role in the murder of Passport Office employee Jason Whitfield. The policeman, who has been on the force for 25 years, was arrested Monday while on duty at the court complex. He was interviewed by CID detectives this afternoon. 43-year-old Whitfield, who was a senior clerk, was found shot dead in a government-owned car in Garden Hills on December 3rd. A 30-year-old Grand Bahama man has been arraigned for a recent murder on that island. Devin Stewart was not asked to plead to the murder charge when he appeared before senior magistrate Charlton Smith. The charges are in connection with the man's bullet-ridden body, which was found through a track road near Frobisher Drive and Hearn Lane back on November 29th. Stewart has been remanded to the Department of Corrections until March 2023, when a voluntary bill of indictment will be served. And 3 people were arraigned before Magistrate Simone Brown on 1 count of possession of an unlicensed firearm and 1 count of possession of ammunition. Freeport residents 21-year-old Verence Reckley and 29-year-old Vaccaro Morley, along with 40-year-old Shanakwa Miller of Seagrape 8 Mile Rock, pleaded not guilty to the offenses and were granted $9,000 bail. The men required to sign in at the 8 Mile Rock police station 5 times a week. The matter is adjourned to April 2023. We've got much more to get to in a moment, but for now, we take a look at your temperatures across the islands. Forecaster Ian McKenzie, he's standing by in the Weather Center. Ian?
Thanks, Gandino, and good evening, Bahamas. Thanks for joining us this evening. Currently on the outside, we're under partly cloudy skies with a temperature of 77 degrees. Our winds are out of the east-northeast at 15 miles per hour with a feels-like temperature of 80. Current conditions across the country right now. In Freeport, we have a temperature of 75, 74 in Marsh Harbor, Abaco, a pair of 78s in Great Harbor Key and Allenstown, Bimini, a pair of 77s in Nicholstown, Andros, and the Capital, and a 76 in Governor's Harbor, Eleuthera. In the central Bahamas, we have a 77 in Camps Bay, Andros, a pair of 76s in Arthurstown and Coburn Town, San Salvador, and a pair of 78s in Georgetown and Deadman's Key, Long Island. In the southeast Bahamas, we have 79 in Duncantown, Ragged Island, 76 in Colonel Hill, 76 also in Delectable Bay, Acklands, and a pair of 77s in Abrahams Bay, Providenciales, and also in Matthewtown. That rounds up our temperature profile. Let's have a look at our satellite picture right now. Not much to talk about in the satellite loop. We have a few clouds associated with that low pressure system that's spinning to the east of us. Outside of that, high pressure will completely dominate the weather pattern across us. These 2 systems combined will generate some breezy conditions across us over the next several days. That's your first look at weather. Stay tuned. More is still to come.
Still to come on our news, government not budging on the price control list. The Economic Affairs Minister outlines the consequences if grocers aren't in line. And teachers are looking forward to new opportunities through higher education. We'll tell you how straight ahead.
These students got a very special STEM education tour on Royal Caribbean's Wonder of the Seas today. You can find out more about that with Nation on Our News.
The Bahamas Union of Teachers signing a memorandum of understanding with the Bahamas Baptist University College to create opportunities for educators and their children to further their studies. President of Bahamas Baptist University College, Dr. Juliet Reed, says the college will provide 2 partial scholarships to teachers in the union.
In a similar way, non-teaching staff employees are able to look at, review, and decide which major other than education they would wish to pursue. and they would also receive a 20% tuition discount as well as 50% of the admissions fee. Children of members will receive discounts to any of our institutions.
Now to another story we've been following. Inspectors took to grocers today to make sure that grocers are in fact abiding by new price control lists. That's according to Economic Affairs Minister Michael Onkitis, who says the Davis administration is not backing down on the issue. Marlena Leonard reports.
Let me just say categorically, there are no negotiations that will hold up the amendments. The amendments to the regulations are in place. We expect them to be respected.
Minister of Economic Affairs Michael Halkitis set the record straight this morning on the price control negotiations with grocers.
This is margin added on top of the cost. So it's not that we're instructing people to sell at a loss. What we're saying is you establish your cost and there's this margin on top of it. And so we think our position is entirely reasonable.
The government has added 38 items to its price control list as the country grapples with high inflation. After a recent report alleged some grocers were not abiding by the set margins, Halkitis told reporters outside the weekly cabinet meeting that inspectors were inside grocery stores making sure there was compliance.
So far, the reports that we have been getting from our inspectors are by and large the new margins are being respected. But in light of what we saw being attributed to some operators today, I have and given instructions that the inspectors are to go out today to double check.
Even the Prime Minister weighed in on the issue ahead of the cabinet meeting, saying rules are to be followed by everyone.
I would expect those who understand the law to follow the law.
Including the grocers.
Including the grocers.
Meantime, Halkitis described the consequences of being found guilty of violating the mandated margins.
There are penalties, fine not exceeding $2,500, imprisonment of up to 6 months. Where someone is convicted of violations, there are penalties under the law, $5,000 fine, up to 12 months imprisonment, and this extends in the case of corporate entities to directors.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Marlena Leonard.
When Our News comes back from the break, we turn our spotlight to stories making headlines across the world as Jamaica declares a state of emergency as it battles a surge in gang violence. Plus, an extension of temporary legal status for Haitians already living in the United States. And later, have you ever considered a career in STEM? 80 students got the experience of a lifetime on board the world's largest cruise ship. We take you along when Our News returns. This is Our News. Welcome back. We turn our attention now to stories making headlines across the world. Drug makers on Tuesday defeated thousands of lawsuits in U.S. federal court claiming the heartburn drug Xanax caused cancer, as a judge found the claims were not backed by sound science. While the companies, which have all marketed the drug at different times, still face tens of thousands of similar lawsuits in state courts, the ruling by U.S. District Judge Robin Rosenberg in West Palm Beach, Florida, knocks out a significant portion of their potential liability. Xanax, first approved in 1983, became the world's best-selling medicine in 1988 and one of the first ever drugs to top $1 billion in annual sales. Indonesia's parliament has approved a new criminal code that bans anyone in the country from having extramarital sex and restricts political freedoms. Sex outside marriage will carry a jail term of up to 1 year under the new laws, which take effect in 3 years. The raft of changes come after a rise in religious conservatism in the Muslim-majority country. Critics see the law as a disaster for human rights and a potential blow to tourism and investment. Jamaica's Prime Minister declared a widespread state of emergency on Tuesday to fight a surge in gang violence on an island with one of the highest murder rates in the region. The state of emergency allows authorities to arrest people and search buildings without a warrant. Similar measures have been imposed in El Salvador and Honduras recently, Prime Minister Andrew Holness dismissed critics, saying in a televised address that his priority is to save lives. The measure applies to certain communities in the capital, Kingston, as well as 6 of Jamaica's 14 parishes. And temporary legal status for Haitians already living in the United States is being expanded by the Biden administration. This as the U.S. says it has determined conditions in the Caribbean nation were too dangerous for their forced return. The Homeland Security Department said Haitians who were in the U.S. on November 6th could apply for temporary protected status, and those who were granted it last year could stay an additional 18 months until August 3rd, 2024. Haiti has been increasingly seeing brazen attacks by gangs that have grown more powerful since the July 2021 assassination of President Jovenel Moïse. A cholera outbreak sweeping the country is claiming more children's lives amid a surge in malnutrition. And 10 illegal migrants are in custody as a result of a joint effort between the Marine Support Unit and immigration officers. Reports are that shortly before 4 p.m. Sunday, officers searched an apartment complex on Brain Coral Lane in Freeport when they found 6 men, 3 women, and a juvenile. Investigations are ongoing. Former Exuma MP and Cabinet Minister George Smith has been appointed non-resident envoy to Singapore. Smith telling Our News he was considered for the post after having visited Singapore several times.
Each time I go there, I marvel at the order, the lack of crime, the discipline of the people, the involvement of the people in the economy, so that when the economy does good, they do better. And their institutions, their security forces are numbered among the best in the world. And I think the Bahamas can learn a great deal from Singapore. I'll be able to get them to see the Bahamas as a good friend, a partner in mutual concerns, world affairs, and matters like that. And I say this again, there are a great many things Bahamas can learn from them. And I hope there are 1 or 2 things they may wish to learn from
Still to
us.
come in Our News, today in history, find out interesting facts about the day that was December 6th and the 1904 birth of a man who would play a pivotal role in the coalition government of 1967. Plus, Ian is back with your extended weather forecast. And then in Our News at 7:30, our Consumer Report takes a closer look at Christmas tree shopping this year and what you should be looking out for. It's all coming up when Our News returns. Welcome back to Our News. It's time now to turn our spotlight on events that shaped the day that was December 6th. Take a look. On this day in Bahamian history, in 1904, Alvin Rudolph Brainin was born in current Eleuthera. Brainin was a politician who served as a member of Parliament, Deputy Speaker, and Speaker of the House. He was first elected to the House of Assembly in 1939, serving there for 35 years. When political parties began in the colony in the 1950s, he became a member of the predominantly white United Bahamian Party, UBP. However, following a disagreement with the party prior to the 1967 general election, Brainin decided to run as an independent candidate for the Harbour Island seat and won. An agreement would be reached between the PLP, Brainin, and Labour MP, Randall Foulkes, in which Foulkes would form a coalition government with the PLP, and Brainin would become Speaker of the House. He would serve in this office from the 9th of February 1967 to the 18th of October in 1972. When the Bahamas achieved independence from the United Kingdom in 1973, he served as High Commissioner to Great Britain from 1973 to 1977. Brainin died on October 9th, 1992 in Nassau. He was 87. Then on this day in 1962, Robert Hallam Simonette was sworn in as Speaker of the House of Assembly of the colony. He served as Speaker of the House until February 9th in 1967. And on December 6, 1983, FamGuard Corporation was incorporated under the laws of the Bahamas to serve as an investment holding company. In world history, in 1865, Georgia became the 27th U.S. state to ratify the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery. In 1912, a bust of Nefertiti was discovered during excavations in Egypt. The sculpture later went on display in a Berlin museum, and it became a source of controversy as an alleged plundered artifact. 2003, Miss Ireland Rosanna Davison was crowned Miss World in Communist China's first international beauty pageant. And finally, in 2006, NASA released images taken by the Mars Global Surveyor that indicated the relatively recent presence of water on Mars. Well, students from the Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics program took on the largest cruise ship in the world in an effort to learn more about maritime and engineering careers. Marlena Leonard was there and has their story.
Over 80 Bahamian school kids got a special treat today as they got to tour Royal Caribbean's Wonder of the Seas. The tour was the culmination of months of work where kids weren't the only ones learning. Senior project lead at the Pan American Development Foundation, Luisa Villegas.
So what we do is, first of all, we train the teachers because, again, as I mentioned, this is a new way of teaching. It's not your traditional, the teacher speaking and the kids listening, but it's more making the kids be the center of whatever they're studying.
Royal Caribbean Group's Associate Vice President of Community and Destination Engagement, Helen O'Connell, explaining how the trip will help the students.
So we brought them on board to have a trip and really see all of the things that they've done in action when you do learn STEM and all the different jobs that you could have.
The kids toured the ship's engine room, learned about robotics at the Bionic Bar, and even heard from a Royal Caribbean employee, 29-year-old Alicia Velasquez, an adventure ocean specialist who has visited 29 countries since starting her job 4 years ago.
We learn about all the engineering facts and the filterization and also the bubbling, the CO2 bubbling to make it smooth.
So I would like to work in the cruise ship someday. It seems fun. You get to travel the world for free, get to eat for free, and it's just a whole different new experience.
Martha McFall, director of the Bahamas' STEM program, says this year alone, 1,000 students have gone through the STEM program. She tells us these kinds of programs help fill gaps where innovation is desperately needed in the education system.
The curriculums, as I've heard from the students, are just too boring for them. We are now in the technology age, and the students are being more technology is coming at them, but in the schools it's remaining the same. Why are they teaching them what they taught me some 30 years ago? We have bright children, but because of our education, they are bored. And so the STEM has come along to enhance the curriculum.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Marlena Leonard.
Thanks, Marlena. Well, Junkanoo is back, and enthusiasts could not be more excited about the return of the greatest show on earth. But what goes into sponsoring such a huge cultural product? Jamila Mizik fills us in.
This Boxing Day and New Year's Day, Bay Street will come alive once again with the sights and sounds of the annual Junkanoo parades. And with the return of the greatest show on earth, a new title sponsor is at the helm, telecommunications company Alive. Alive CEO John Gomez says the decision to sponsor the parades was a no-brainer.
There's been almost a 3-year hiatus from Junkanoo. So we thought this is a great way to bring that connectivity back in terms of bringing the country back together by sponsoring one of the most indigenous and the most cultural events in the country.
The Alive CEO says the company has partnered with the Junkanoo Corporation of New Providence to be the title sponsor for the next 5 years. He says the public will also have access to some of Alive's great services.
And you're going to have top-up, you're going to have devices, because we're going to make it a seamless experience for our customers so that if they want to purchase services or devices, they're going to be made available for our customers.
And for the first time ever, the parades will be broadcasted live by another station.
Alive is the title sponsor for this parade. However, we also have the entire group of companies, cable group of companies, who are also partners and sponsors as well. And so when we leverage the strength of all those brands and those different segments of our business, we're going to be able to, as you say, we're going to be covering it on television. We're going to actually be providing the technology to make people be able to see it on their devices, whether they're here or abroad. And so we are excited about being able to leverage all of that strength of our brands.
Yes, exciting times ahead. That report from our Jamila Mizik. And to watch that story again and for all of today's top stories, visit ournews.bs. That's going to do it for us in News in 7. Joining us now is Italia Hall. She's got the latest headlines. Italia?
Yes, Ken. Interesting story with Jamila. I'm ready. It's been 2 years.
But I want to know which
Junkanoo.
group are you pulling
Ken,
for?
That question I will throw back to you.
You know
tell
what?
the
I never
audience.
say that on air just
Okay.
because you never know.
Right. All right. Thanks so much, Ken.
Yeah.
And we are back at the BPSU headquarters where our Berthing McDermott has the latest on looming industrial action.
New tonight on our News Live at 7:30. Severe overcrowding at Princess Margaret Hospital leading to a partnership between the public and private healthcare systems. Our Berthing McDermott speaks with the PHA chief tonight. Plus, Bahamas Public Service Union officials are meeting this evening. Our Berthing McDermott is live outside that meeting tonight. And Junkanoo tickets may soon sell out. The warning coming from the Sports and Culture Minister. Plus, what does it take to find the perfect Christmas tree? Our Consumer Report takes a closer look. Our News Live at 7:30 starts in a moment.